Hello world, Coach Xai'nyy here. Behind the camera I have
Xai'nyy.
Awesome. So we had a Mojo reading session last night. It fortunately did not get recorded because we're still trying to figure out how to record a Google Hangout, but it went swimmingly well, and we had on 5 people, myself, Xai'nyy, Ademus, Mitchell, and Mike, also known as Infiniti. And next week, or the week after that, so next week I think we'll have the tech figured out and we'll be able to show you a first recorded session of us doing what we do. And the week after that, Ben will be returning, so we'll have an even bigger group. Highlight of that is that, as you know, for proof of concept, track 1 is the main thing that's going to be building that, and starting at level 11, we want to have proof of what people can do as far as accuracy to show what kind of cohesion of opinion we have, which sets us apart from all the pretenders. And so the plans on that are for it to be 52.5 or above accuracy to be level 11, and that goes up 2.5% per level to 75%. We would go past that, but once we have people who are past 75% reliably, then that's just something that is so significant the scientific community is going to have to address it. Okay, with that said, we had about 7 or so people take this week's quiz, and the range of scores were 55% to 70%, which is great. And right there, any models out there that are pretenders, which is everyone who's not pod layer, you don't have it, and you can't do what we're doing now, and this is only the beginning. So next weekend will be our first recording of us doing cohesion of opinion in public proof of concept of cohesion of opinion. So we all came to those answers independently, and that's kind of cohesion we can get. If it was nothing at all, it would be about 7% random. It tends to be around 25% people have, which is above random but still low. So anything over 50 is quite significant, and we're already we're scoring things over the 50 percentile. So it's important to note that in this analogy, we're pulling things out of 16, so that's quite significant. You might say, well, what about bubbles that help narrow it down? Yeah, but bubbles tend to narrow it down to like 5 possible down to like 2 possible. So even if you're talking about a field that has only 2 primary mojos that tend to show up in that bubble, and you're aware of what bubble they're from, that would still narrow it down to 50%. So again, even on the most limited bubbles a person might be from, if you can score consistently over 50%, then even that shows that there's something going on beyond random guessing. But a lot of things in that quiz, these were actresses, and in actresses you have 5 mojos that come up quite frequently: Nijai, Nizai, Xai'nyy, Xai'nyy, and the Naiji. So it could be any one of those 5. And so that only brings up random guessing to about 20%. So again, anything over 20% is very, very significant, and we're having that. Yay! So I'm bummed that didn't get recorded because that fucking happened. But guess what? It's going to happen again. It'll happen again next week and the weekend after that. I mean, the scores will go up and down some because this is a learning process with, periods of growth and then understanding to it once you go through that growth process. But this is where we're starting at. Oh my goodness. So 10,000 samples we put out, and we have cohesion of opinion on that. So first of all, 10,000 samples, no other model has done that. All scaredy. None of them have hit 4 digits. They don't even do like 1,000, okay? So they will put out any kind of large number of lists. Next, on that, they cannot get cohesion of opinion on those lists. Now, getting cohesion of opinion on previously unread samples that no one knows. We're getting that, and that's with ones that are weak. We're going to keep working on that for however long it takes to get the demo team to do that, and then we're playing with it right now actually, doing it to where we can do real-time reading and doing it where you only have, say, 20, 30 minutes right then to read the sample, not a whole week. And you're being quizzed like right then. You can't like look at it, go away, come back to your desk, sleep on it. All those kinds of options aren't there. So we're building up to that as well. So those 4 things, you're screwed, and then eventually we're gonna be able to put it into CGI and facial recognition, and then actually all these you have no answer for, and that's a big problem for your model, but it's great for us. All right, so today I'm going to be doing Mojo tutorial on Christine Adams. Christine Adams is an actress, and she is a Xai'nyy. And she has a very nice game, excellent game. As a part of that, sometimes that can throw people because the maneuvers that people who have certain preferences in their game, and then also just high levels of their game. So she was the sample from last night, because we're tracking how many people from our study group are getting the answer correct, just for general information, but also Infiniti is working on putting together a sampling of really pronounced members of each gender mojo so they'll be easy to learn about, because some do pop out easier than others. Some of that is just based on the personal lens of the reader, but some of them it's sort of universal to a degree. And that happened where some of the samples, everyone got them right. Everyone got the samples right. Other ones, it was mixed. And then this one here, Christine Adams, she was the one sample we had that no one got correctly. So she'll be the one to focus on. Everyone, I think, mistook her for Xai'nyy or one of the Xai'nyy alpha. So the main thing going on here is separating her from being objective, because she's subjective, and then also distinguishing lead discerner from lead perceiver. So that's what I'll be focusing on here. Okay. I am now looking at the interview called Impromptu Interview 13, Christine Adams. I am at 8 seconds. Okay. What jumps out to me right away, she has good Xai'nyy. She has a very buoyant energy about her, very bright. A fine shading on that can be confusing because I often talk about the buoyant lift of the Xai'nyy, which she has quite a lot of. She has a strong Xai'nyy game. But she also has strong Xai'nyy, and it's a very joyous, vigorous Xai'nyy. And the Xai'nyy, when it's like that, also gives a strong feeling of life and lift. So right here, her face is beaming. She has beaming Xai'nyy and beaming Xai'nyy. Overall effect is a lift, an invigorating quality. So sometimes with Xai'nyy, there can be the association, which is quite prevalent, of a more calming energy going over to depressive, with calming being the center. And then there's also a joyous, vigorous. So Xai'nyy generally is calm, but it can be more depressed or rattled, and it can be more joyous and vigorous. All right, so it's important to note that Xai'nyy has that full range. This happens a lot with Xi as well. When you have Xi mojos that do a lot of baleful, for some reason people associate baleful with logic-based or something else because they don't think of that particular range of the emotive spectrum as being emotive, or at least not with Xi. Same thing here. So this is actually a very robust Xai'nyy I'm seeing here, which makes me immediately think Xai'nyy. And I'm actually feeling the mouth hit me first. So 8 seconds, beaming Xai'nyy, beaming Xai'nyy, but the mouth is hitting me stronger. But I'm getting a lift. But I'm used to seeing this kind of riff, so I notice this is the lift of a vigorous, buoyant Xai'nyy. But if you're not used to this riff, that feeling you get may be something you associate more from Xai'nyy alpha, from that source Xai'nyy lift. And there is a similarity, and she is a Xai'nyy mojo and has a lot of Xai'nyy. But here, there's also the Xai'nyy, and the Xai'ny's in lead. On that, her eyes are very bright, but there is a gauziness, a softness over the eyes as she's looking. And that's also what gives them their hoodedness. Her hoodedness is a poignant hoodedness. But again, sometimes that poignant hoodedness we've spoken of before, it can be more sleepy looking. Hers does not look sleepy. She has a poignant hoodedness, but it looks more like a charity worker that's ready to go do some work for charity. So it has that quality, which is really, really awesome. But it may be something you're not quite as familiar with, and it could be confused with something else. What else? It's subtle right here to probably show more later, but just her general posture, it kind of has a, what's the word for this? I don't know if we've ever used this term in this way exactly, but it fits. I'm glad to use it now. Is we've mentioned before that the adaptives have a certain giving quality, going with viscosity in the air with their gestures, and that the towers in particular have this sort of collapsible quality, even more pronounced than, this is key here, from a gatherer, such as the Xai'nyy Alpha, where their wrists and their hands have even more of a collapsing back in of itself, and their arms kind of even fold in and kind of rest on themselves in a way that's quite comfortable for them. Okay, there's also, I'd say, a collapsible posture that they sometimes do, and often you'll see Xai'nyy have a very erect posture, so it's not always there, but sometimes you'll see it to where they kind of, that we talk about the swaying quality, they'll sort of sway. For example, Xai'nyy has more of an erect posture riff, which is very cool in its way. But Demas is a Nez tower that has that collapsible posture where he'll sort of lean on one leg, lean on the other, lean back, and as he does, all the body kind of rests into whatever's supporting there, and that's more pronounced with towers. And she has a little bit here. It's subtle, it's more advanced cue. If you can't see too well, it's fine, but just note that I'm noting for myself that that collapsible quality that towers have, it also can come into the overall body posture. Alrighty, I'm gonna keep going here. We're now at 10 seconds. The guy said, we're now in impromptu interview time. And she does this. It's a sort of defensive gesture. She's not feeling defensive, but I believe they're doing a little role play here where they're pretending like this is a random interview when it's not a random interview. And so now she's going to kind of get into character. So she goes to her Xai'nyy of like how she's going to do it. And it's interesting that she was very bold with her Xai'nyy before, but now she knows she's going to kind of do like pretend Xai'nyy. She goes deep into her Xai'nyy and she kind of hides that she's doing. She's going to do naughty pretend Xai'nyy. She's going to pretend like this is a made up, like this is a on the spot interview when it's not. Sort of like what's the one that has energy somewhat too, where she has really good Xai'nyy, but she uses a lot to do parody.
Parody.
It's on the Daily Show.
Oh yes, I don't.
Xai'nyy. Anyway, she's newer to the cast, but she's very, very good. It's the Xai'nyy female on there, and she also does.
She's great.
And she does the same kind of thing where she'll do like exasperated Xai'nyy and she pretends to be like a really trollish person, and you can tell her Xai'nyy with the knee is enjoying and actually like pretending like her Xai'nyy is bad Xai'nyy. That one Xai'nyy male comedian also, John Mulaney, would also do like, you know, bad Xai'nyy, you know what I mean? It's very funny. Anyway, sorry, back to the Mojo reading here, is when she does this, I want you to notice a couple things. One, the line of the hand, it's longer. Xai'nyy Xai'nyy also do a version of this, but it's more coquettish, where they go like this, and the hand has a little more yang to it for an adaptive. So here the hand is a little looser in energy as it comes up. Then the mouth. She has, what we talked about in some of those other ones before, the Xai'nyy who have a little bit of mouth movement, and you have to look for the tautness in the face. So she's deeply in her Xai'nyy here, but she's keeping her face rather impassive. But when she does that, notice that it kind of makes like an even heavier, the gauzy quality you saw at first, it's heavier now as she closes her eyes. Next, with her eyes closed, she's going home. That is not going underwater. So 10 seconds, if a Xai'nyy Xai'nyy was doing this exact same maneuver, which they do in their own way, their exact variant of it, because they are an ad-rom, they'll go into their Xai'nyy and they'll do like this, and the going into the Xai'nyy will be going underwater, not as relaxed. This will have more Gumby energy into it, and the Xai'nyy will be a little more coy. All right. And so now she comes out 12 seconds, she goes, is it? Oh my gosh. So she's basically plainly doing Xai'nyy that is pretending. It's an spell that authentic Xai'nyy can do, where it's different than the way Xi does parody, but it kind of like does like exaggerated Xai'nyy intonation, which is its way of telling you, I'm making this up.
Making it up. So it's role play.
It's role play. This is role play. So here, big smile, and that is a Xai'nyy big smile, as compared to say the Xai'nyy Xai'nyy sometimes can confuse. That's a Xai'nyy big smile, big toothy Xai'nyy smile, and the cheeks are feeling, and there's actually energy around the eyes. The eyes are starting to sink in a little bit to the energy that's coming up from the cheeks here, the mouth into the cheeks. And that gauzy, soft, warm gauze we talked about is increasing. As she's doing it here, you can see she's looking through more of a mesh. When she started at first, she did it, but her Xai'nyy was here, and she was more out a bit with the knee. And then here she went boom, and she went, is it? And when she says it, she's still heavily with her Xai'nyy, and there's a bit more of a squintiness. There's some Vi to that as well, but more Xai'nyy. She's definitely feeling good here and playful. All right. I'm going to focus on, again, the going in. We're at 14 seconds. Actually, before that, between 12 and 14 seconds, she did that thing I talked about before that towers tend to do, where they do this little kind of swooping jut. Not a jut like, you know, straightforward, or more like a, you know, headbutting jut that sometimes pilots do. There is a sort of turtling of the head as you go in. It's a very interesting thing, kind of like the body collapses a bit as the jut goes forward, almost like there's a wall here, and the jut's kind of like going up the wall, not going forward, not smashing through the wall, but sort of. So she did that very briefly there, but then the thing I'm focus on more is she again now is looking down. That is Xai'nyy resonating. That's classic Xai'nyy resonating, and from a Xai'nyy alpha. Big Xai'nyy smile. The eyes are half closed. She's looking down to her right. Vulnerability, pointy, but this kind of vulnerability looks vigorous. She's having a great time. It's the vulnerability of someone who's having a great time. It's why, like, for example, like Mojos, we like it when we can get Xai'nyy to laugh, because when it laughs, it's like this authentic laugh that just really says they're having a good time, and you can't really do it otherwise. Xai'nyy has a hard time doing faking if it's having a good time when it's not, which means it has a special power when it does do it, because it means it's real. And so you're like, oh, we are really having a good time. But also notice that she's going home. So she's going, gauziness goes up, and you can feel like a heaviness in the eyes. That's the Xai'nyy heaviness, but that heaviness is not like holding the buoyancy down for a second, which would be for the knee Xai'nyy. It's actually going home. She's feeling very good and getting a charge up. That's a source, that is source momentum. That is major momentum. Important to note that between that, say that and the knee Xai'nyy, which I think several people confuse her for, is what you're seeing right here is a level of Xai'nyy momentum the knee Xai'nyy do not get. The amount it goes up into the face, how much it is giving her gauziness over the eyes, and the fact that she's basically going completely into Xai'nyy here, and that is not going underwater, it's going home. All right. Another maneuver here she does. Very, very cool how she does it. She's very smooth and nice to look at as far as just how she styles it into her speaking rhythm. We're at 16 seconds, and she kind of did like a bobble jut, but when she did the bobble jut slightly, it's something, for example, Xai'nyy also does this maneuver as well. It's probably from doing stuff at work a lot. We're used to giving presentations. She gives a bobble jut, which is a very objective maneuver. And as she did it, something you will not rarely see a knee Xai'nyy doing. Or they may do it, but they'll do it at different timing. The timing is critical. They'll do it after they return from the bobble jut. They may check their Xai'nyy to see how it went and to get some extra minor momentum. Here, she went and did a bobble jut, and she closed her eyes for just a second. Here at 16 seconds, little bobble jut, she half closes her eyes and then opens them again while she's doing the little bobble jut maneuver. The choosing to do that is something generally the knee Xai'nyy does not choose to do. It's a subtle thing, kind of like sparring rhythm, but it's very important. Usually go, bobble jut, Xai'nyy. The Xai'nyy check, they might do it quick, like she's doing quick here, but it'll be bobble jut quick. And they'll do it after they kind of return, not while they're out usually. Why would you do that? This is actually a knee primary maneuver for those who are using the knee first with a Z. And so when they're doing that, if you were getting that as your main source, you wouldn't need to do the Xai'nyy closing the eyes. If they do the Xai'nyy, knee Xai'nyy tend to do this. Bobble jut, They'll do some mouth stuff like, but they don't drop the eyes. Rarely do they actually do that. But towers do. Towers, because such an objective moves, there were a few Mojos, Demus does it too, where they'll do a little jump like, ha ha ha. And while they're doing it, this is interesting. Yes, I do that as well. The hunters also do it, but interesting to note, I usually do it to the left. I'm like, hey, can you believe it? And I'll do a quick like touch to my vision to keep going while I'm out, because I'm subjective, but usually not as much to the right, because right would pull me back, that's defensive. So she's out here and going to her right, bobble, and a quick down to the right. And then also, it's going home. And it's noticeable to me, it really jumps that she's going home here, because she basically did a tower pit stop out in the middle of the objective field. So, I mean, not only is it like, you know, going home, yeah, but you're actually in a tower position bodily and head axis wise. To take your body and your head out of that axis, which the bobble jut is, and then to catch it while you're out here, and to have that brief moment that you do it look like you're going home when you're, you know what I mean? You're kind of like out in the middle and go, tower, and back to what I was doing. So, very interesting, and for, it's quick and subtle, but you can see it, definitely 16 seconds she's doing it, and to me, that would be like a closer, because that's not something I see Xai'nyy doing. And for myself, when I read her, I can see what happened to people, because I actually immediately thought Adram. I got Adram right away, but the level of knee she was using and the ease she was doing knee and Z, bobble jutting, and a few other things, I wasn't quite sure at first. But then a few things helped it pop out. One, the level of vigorous in the Xai that takes up the whole face and gives me a Xai heavy lift, which is kind of distinguished the different lifts you get. And then here, this maneuver of going home in a tower maneuver within the context of another maneuver, which is about as foreign from that as you can get. So, very cool. Okay, I'm now at 19 seconds. You don't see her face here, but that's not important. It's great. They're kind of going down her body to show like her biker gear she's wearing. She's definitely got kind of the tomboy thing. That's something too, is the tomboy hottie for female, that's something that you see a lot of Xai'nyy doing. It's very common for the Xai'nyy to go that way. They can also go the coquettish way, but they tend to more often go tomboy in certain ways. She has a very sort of rugged, vigorous Xai quality, and her overall sort of bearing is someone who looks like they do a lot of outdoorsy stuff, very vigorous. She clearly likes to do improv comedy, so she's quite down. And so that can be something that could throw you as well. But ironically, when they're showing her on her cool ATV or whatever that is, and her cool, you know, gorilla cargo pants and boots, I'm looking at her hands. This. Okay, that is not a gatherer hand. At 19 seconds, right there, she has her hand like this. First of all, those lines are more the lines of a tower. The relaxation she has in her hand, that's beyond just normal adaptive lack of tensioning, that's tower lack of tensioning. And then the length and drapiness of the fingers, that's Franzi. So right there, that would be another kind of closer for me when I'm trying to decide, which I was, between the two Adrams right there. The lines of the wrist and the fingers and just the overall tensioning, that's tower. Gatherers don't have that much looseness. And this is sort of like a forward collapsibility. There's a forward collapsibility and a backward collapsibility, and all the adapters have it to a degree, but it doesn't look so much collapsible with the gather as it looks more wiggly. Wiggly jiggly, you know what I mean? Gumby, wiggly jiggly gumbly. That's how it comes out. But like the collapsible quality work, to the point where like the word collapsible makes sense, is what you see Demus doing, Xai'nyy doing here and there, and Christine Adams is doing it right there at 19 seconds. All right, 27, 28 seconds. She does, well, she was going back and forth, mocking playfully like that she's doesn't know this interview is going to happen, which clearly she does, and that's part of her humor she's doing here. But the thing I focus on is while she's doing it, she's like, well, whatever. She kind of like does like a hair touching gesture. When she does that, again, the Franzi stood out both ways, both parts of the maneuver. When she went back, it had that kind of letting the hand just kind of move over the head as far as instead of the way the directors do it, and that quality was accentuated over a gatherer. Gatherers also have that looseness, but it's more solid. Hers was very leafy, fronzy, and then when she brings the hand forward here, it's out in this kind of shape, and there's very little tension in the fingers or the wrist, and it has those long lines. Oh, and while we're here, she has a big Xai'nyy smile. She has her eyes closed. She's clearly enjoying the Xai'nyy, what she's doing. It's going up her face. Again, notice this with the Xai'nyy. Two things you mentioned, that the Xai'nyy can be feeling a lot of intensity, a lot of big movement, and also different than G, often the eyes can get more hooded, even going closed because it is subjective power. So she's like this. And it's giving tension, not a lot of movement, but definitely like tension of how much he's into it. And it's that tension is also on the eyes. That Xai'nyy is also on the eyes. And she's going home. That is Xai'nyy going home, not going underwater. So yeah, for me, that would jump out. Big Xai'nyy mouth. I see sort of a veil of pointy that's kind of weighing on those closed eyes. With the eyes closed, she's going home like a subjective, and she had these long lines on that hair maneuver. Each one had its own weight, but collectively, that set of things right there kind of really kind of put her over into Xai'nyy for me, because that's a set of maneuvers altogether, none of which the Ni Xai'nyy does like that. All right, we're now at 31 seconds. She's doing a very pronounced Vi check. And when she does, you can see the concerned look on her face. And you can see her cheeks going flat. But comparing this to a Ni Xai'nyy, things that seem different to me. As I said, it was pronounced that she had momentum, like a major momentum Xai'nyy. This is minor modulation Vi. If you're used to seeing Ni Xai'nyy, when they do as much, that's a very, like, it's not quick, she does a Vi check. When Ni Alpha, either one of them do that, there's a more pronounced pinched quality. It's more pinched on the face, in the eyes, and a less comfortability to what they're doing. She looks a little put out, but not like, it looks kind of like you hit the pause button on Ni Alpha when they go to buy something, like, bow, bow, So that, she's doing like a, not subtle, but it's very important. Nez Towers versus Ni Alpha, the difference when they go to the Vi is, the Ni Alpha looked like a bird that suddenly had one of their legs pulled on while they're in flight. That's kind of the image I get. It's like, it's a little more alarmed. That's an quad, a little more pinched, a little more alarmed with the Ni Alpha. Here, she's modulating, but it's more like, kind of like when I do Xai'nyy, like, okay, let me go get this. More like put out, but not like, I don't know if I could do this. What is this? I see one of my own powers, but I don't understand. Anyway, so that is concern, but not at the level. I mean, it is the level of it because she's doing a pronounced maneuver, but it's not causing the associated Vi modulation of discomfort. There's more of a pinched quality because Vi, when it's done, can look more prepared or more pinched, and often depends on like how much you're modulating, how much it's keening you. So Ni Alpha, it's easier for their Vi to look pinched because it's polar. And then for those that have it, say like, a Xai'nyy or a Xai'nyy, they can do it easier without it looking pinched. If they do it too much, it can also look pinched, but it's easier because it's not as modulating. Also, the Xai'nyy is still big in her mouth. She's doing a big Vi maneuver, and going along with it being the compound with Z for her, the cheeks are noticeably anvil here, and she even has a bit of that Z sneer. just slight sneer on the Xai'nyy. So you see the flattening of the cheeks and a bit of the sneer that kind of goes with Z when it does that, but still there's a substantial amount of Xai'nyy. When Xai'nyy do it, not only do they go, oh, like kind of like they kind of like hit the curb or something with their car, when they go to Vi, also there tends to be a more noticeable dropping of the Xai'nyy. And that's because if they go that far into Vi, they're that far into their compound. And when they do, their Z will come up stronger. And their Z is more higher ranked than a Xai'nyy is. So when they go that heavy into their Vi, usually there's a more substantial amount of Z going with it. That's because for the Xai'nyy, the Z comes after the Vi. It's important to note. The Xai'nyy can go into Vi for a longer period of time or more intensely without it activating Z. It still will because the compound relationship, but since it's weaker than the Vi can be accessed with some substance before the Z is needed to come on. But usually the Xai'nyy, when they go into their Vi, they're going into the compound far enough to go into the polar portion. That means the offside portion will generally be decently activated at the same time, so they get a little more anvily, you know what I mean? So it's like, so when they do a little Vi, I hit the curb, they also go, you know what I mean? There's a little more of that, a little more tightness in the Xai'nyy. So her Xai'nyy is tightened for her, but it's still quite loose compared to a Xai'nyy. And the anvil is not as much, and the Vi easier to get to. So subtle distinctions, but this is the confusion we were having is between the two adroms. Alright, so we're at 36 seconds between whatever the last time code I gave you and here. She did some talking and she was like going so-and-so, said something, whatever. So she was kind of remembering things, and now she's doing more Z because she is stating what they said or what she heard. Important to note, the kind of thing that hit me here is, this gets back to the ranking difference of the powers, is with this amount of Z articulation she's doing, I am seeing the Xai'nyy drop, but it does not go off. Now, she's keeping it out of her mouth some, but still I see the tension on the whole face, that slight tension we talked about. But keyly, as I mentioned in other videos, the voice. The voice is still heavy, pregnant with Xai'nyy. It does sort of has this weight to it, giving the words an import beyond the grammatical specifics of the Z of the words. As compared to Xai'nyy, if a Xai'nyy was doing the same maneuver, often they can go into their bubbly mode, I'll call it, and when they do, they can do, for example, double barreling, Ni and Z, easier, and so when they do that, they often don't need to bring the Xai'nyy in as much. And then when they get into more like, and so-and-so, blah, blah, they actually get to like, they're gonna like do some academic stuff on you, or they're gonna like state something out, there is still the Xai'nyy heaviness, but it doesn't seem heavy compared to Xai'nyy. I call it more Xai'nyy mediumness. So there's a weight there, but if you compare it to Xai'nyy, this is not the same heaviness, and that kind of pulled it out for me because she was doing a decent amount of Z there, and the Xai'nyy never dropped. But the Xai'nyy for a Xai'nyy is intermittent. So even when they're like on the momentum, they'll be like bubble bubble warm, bubble bubble warm. Even there, it's like a burble burble warm, burble burble warm, and so there's a slight intermittency to it, even on momentum. So when a Xai'nyy goes over and starts articulating, that intermittency will increase. Whereas with the Xai'nyy is not intermittent. So even when they go to Ni, it's bubble bubble bubble, bubble bubble bubble. So they're bobbling, but there is a Xai'nyy to it. And then even when they go as far as going all the way over to polar Z to articulate, blah, 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 blah. Like she still has that sort of warble, like kind of Xai'nyy quality to it, even though she's doing a maneuver that doesn't require that at all. Like there's no reason for it to be there. So Xai'nyy also do it, and you can hear it, but it almost has like a ZZ Xai'nyy, like almost like they slip the Xai'nyy in like nervous. It's a more tentative kind of like the momentum feels the need to slip their Xai'nyy in with articulating, but it's a little more furtive. There's a smoother sort of constant quality to the Xai'nyy that the Xai'nyy puts in, which gives it that soothing quality. That soothing quality, that calming quality, that emotionally invigorating quality, even all the way out on their polar maneuver, that never goes away. Whereas a Ni Xai, their Xai as its base thing, it's an intermittent kind of Xai. And that intermittency will increase as they go further down. So a subtle difference, but it's a critical difference, and it shows up in all their powers. That consistency, steadiness of the Xai as opposed to the slight intermittency, momentum intermittency. Obviously, Xai'nyy and Xai'nyy also have intermittent Xai, but that's not the same thing because that's actually modulation. This is momentum intermittent Xai. Okay, I think that's good for today, and we can talk more next time. All right, bye-bye.